Today, we're looking at a blue ink by Atramentis, Christopher Columbus or Atlantic Blue. Hi, I'm Adam, and I'm an ink guy. I get inks, test them, and share the results with you. Now, there's timestamps down below so you can skip around to the part you're most interested in. Or, if you've got the time, I'd appreciate you checking out the entire video. You could also follow me on Instagram, and if you like fountain pen ink reviews, I would invite you to subscribe. In order to make sure I have a range of experience with this ink, I do the writing samples. I then put it into this Kaweco Brass Sport, broad nib, wrote with it for a day, and used it to take the notes for this video. In order to have some standardization in my writing samples, I always use Clairfontaine, Tomoe River, and Rhodia paper. I do test other papers, but those will show up later in the video. Now, let's look at the writing sample. I picked this ink up in sample form, so it comes in a vial like this. And to keep my writing samples consistent, I use a Jinhao 159 with a Goulet 1.1 stub, a Jinhao X450 with a Goulet medium, and a Jinhao X750 with a Goulet extra fine. Let's take a look at the Clairfontaine. We get no bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather spread, halo sheen, and no shade. Now the extra fine is quite a bit lighter than the stub. With no feather spread, halo sheen, it does offer some nice shading. Like you can see, the T and the's a little darker than the rest of the word. Quick starts darker, gets lighter. Brown starts lighter or darker, gets lighter. Over, nice light word. The goes light to dark. 12 seconds to dry. Now medium is darker than the extra fine, just a hair lighter than the stub. It has no feather spread, halo sheen. It has spots of darker, like the K in quick, the B in brown, X in fox, R in over. So it's largely one tone with spots of some darker letters. 16 seconds to dry. Now the scrubby of the extra fine and the medium, and it's a bit hard to see on screen here, I hope it comes through better. There is some color variation here, and there is some color variation here. Tomoe River. No bleeding, normal Tomoe River ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather spread, halo sheen, and no shade. Now the extra fine is lighter than the stub with no feather spread, halo sheen, no shade. 16 seconds to dry. Medium is lighter than the extra fine, just a hair lighter. No feather spread, halo sheen, no shade. 21 seconds to dry. The scrubby for both show us no color variation because there is none. And Rhodia. No bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather spread, halo sheen, or shade. The extra fine is lighter than the stub with no feather spread, halo sheen, no shade. Nope, my bad. Plenty of shading in here. I rushed right through that. Quick starts dark, gets lighter, gets much darker. Brown starts much darker, gets much lighter. Fox goes from dark to mid-tone to dark. Over starts light and gets dark, so there is very nice shading in the extra fine. 13 seconds to dry. Medium is about the same tone as the extra fine. It has no feather spread, halo sheen. As far as shading, it's got spots of darker letters, like the left side of Q, the K, the B, the X in fox. The T in the second the is lighter than the rest of the word, so there is some shading here, not as standout. 17 seconds to dry. Scrubby for both, far left to far right, do show some color variation, and we do get it in the writing. I agree with Vita that I've learned a lot by doing multiple chromatographies. The one on the left is done the way it's supposed to be done. I put a line of ink down and immediately put it into water for 10 to 15 seconds. And what we really see is a true blue. It is leaving some ink on the paper as it's moving its way up, but it's just getting darker as it's moving up and collecting at the top. The one on the right, I let dry for 10 minutes before I dunk it into water, and there's a very noticeable blue line across the bottom. Otherwise, it looks the same, but it does make me feel that there's going to be some resistance with this ink. Resistance tests are done to see how well this ink can be expected to perform on the page and how hard it may be to clean from your pen. I let the smear dry for 3 days before testing it. Looking at the highlighter, I am very happy with how this performs. I would feel very confident using this in a note-taking situation if I wanted to go back and highlight. Water is lifting all of the darkest tones of the ink, but it's leaving a lot of that blue at the bottom, like what we saw in the second chromatography. Pen flesh does everything that water does and nothing more. It does take quite a bit of pen flesh and a little bit of extra work to get this ink out of your pen than just water. It took some elbow grease with the pen flesh. I didn't need to go to the 1/3 bleach solution. But if you did, it does completely remove it from the pen. It left a weird brown staining on the paper. It didn't do anything like that in the pen. I didn't need to use the 1/3 bleach. If you need to use it, make sure that you wash your pen out with water immediately after so you don't rust your metal bits. I test ink viscosity with a tilt test that I'll link somewhere. Now for the inks I've tested, I have found an average viscosity of 2.5, with the realm of normal being from 2.1 to 2.9. The Atramentis Atlantic Blue has a viscosity of 2.47, making this normal. To find my average dry times, I use my writing samples done on Clairfontaine, Tomoe River, and Rhodia paper. I average all of those. Now for the inks I've tested, I've found an average dry time of 17 seconds, with the realm of normal being from 13 to 21 seconds. The Atramentis Atlantic Blue has an average dry time of 16 seconds, making its dry time normal. Instead of finding inks that look like the Atramentis Atlantic Blue, I would prefer to find an ink that complements its color on the page. So I went with a nice, mostly red, Atramentis Red Brown. The second writing sample is done on yellow Rhodia, Life, and Franklin-Christoph paper. Here we're looking at the yellow Rhodia paper to see what kind of tone change we may go through for having a yellow backdrop to the paper. Now, this blue does make a slight shift towards green in the stub, a much larger shift towards green in the extra fine, and that same large shift to green with the medium. So that age-old yellow and blue makes green is definitely being affected here, as this is a little bit more translucent in ink. Up next is Life paper. Now we have no bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 is no feather spread, halo sheen, or shade. The extra fine is a lot lighter than the stub with no feather spread, halo sheen, but it does offer some nice shading. Look at brown, starting dark and getting light. Quick, starting lighter and getting darker. Over starts light to dark. The light to dark. So pretty nice. What's also interesting is we're getting a little bit of that green lean from this. Still keeping kind of the blue when I put them all right next to each other. When it's all by itself, I feel that green lean kind of there in the extra fine especially. The extra fine is 10 seconds to dry. Medium, quite a bit darker than the extra fine, same tone as the stub with no feather spread, halo sheen, no shade, 14 seconds to dry. Now the scrubby for both show no color variation, although we do get color variation in the extra fine. Last up, Franklin-Christoph paper. No bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 is no feather spread, halo sheen, or shade. The extra fine is quite a bit lighter than the stub with no feather spread, halo sheen, no shade, 6 seconds to dry. Medium is the same tone as the stub, which is quite a bit darker than the extra fine. It has no feather spread, halo sheen, no shade, 8 seconds to dry. The scrubby for both show us no color variation, and we didn't get any, and that is all that I have for the writing sample. So what do I think of Atramentis, Christopher Columbus, or Atlantic Blue? This ink gives a lot of tone variation depending on what pen you choose to put it into. Now for me, I don't care when inks are that unpredictable to me. I want to know what I'm going to get. I prefer boring and predictable. Now I like shading. It doesn't have a lot. That's not the problem. The problem is the tones of blue that I'm getting from this ink are not tones that I personally care for. So what nib and pen are going to give the best writing experience? I didn't care for how it looked in wet pens. It was just too dark. Now, medium flow broads or mediums, the color was nice. I thought it looked best in a dry, medium, or fine. That's where I saw that you could get some shading out of this ink and at least let some of its character come through. If you've enjoyed this video and made it this far, I'd appreciate a thumbs up. And if you didn't like it, give me a thumbs down and tell me why. Thanks for watching.